welcome to week 10 of our fall series, The Big Dream. So we're going to spend some time this week talking about how does this thing really get energized to move to the next level, this big dream. Does it take great personality, charisma, technique, zeal? Quite frankly, those things are all icing on the cake. But without what I call the secret sauce, it just isn't going to happen. Interestingly, Jesus, as thrilled as the disciples, the team were when he came back from the dead, and they were ready to go off and do all that he told them to do. They'd been trained, they'd seen it in action. But he told them, do not leave here without the secret sauce. Really, I mean the Spirit. That what we really need is power from another place, from the throne of God himself, so that Jesus Christ can literally live in us and do his work through us as he did it when he was here. It's going to be a great time talking about that this week. Tonight, I want to review a little bit with you because this is really important. You know, we just got done doing a 7-week session down at Helping Up. We just ended last Tuesday, and one of the things that we were sharing there, I realized every week we'd spend some time reviewing because I heard somewhere that you need to hear something around 7 times before you actually get it. I don't know who made that up. Some of us, it's more like 10. If you're like me, maybe 15. But I know this, the more you get it, here's what I would say. You know when you've learned it, when you actually feel like you can tell it to somebody else with some degree of comfortableness. And so that's what we're trying to do, is to not just create concepts, but to talk about something that we really hope will get in you. And so, if you're new this week, and every week we have some new, but we've been spending these last 10 weeks of our lives together talking about what? What was the title of this time together?
The Big Dream.
The Big Dream. Exactly right. The Big Dream. And I want to read to you again how we started out. This is kind of how it started. It says, imagine for a minute that you were tasked with changing the course of human history, turning back the forces of evil and chaos that exist both within the world and within the heart of mankind. No little task, right? To make things more complicated, you're going to face fierce opposition throughout this effort, having a limited amount of time to complete your mission before turning it over to other people. Yet knowing that one day you will return to secure the ultimate victory. What would you do first? What kind of people would you invest your time and effort into? How would you go about molding and training and empowering them? How might you assure their faithfulness to the task that's set before them? That's no little thing, is it? So we tried to spend the last 10 weeks talking about, and then we're going to go to a visual picture of this that might help you a little bit, talking about what's true. We know, I lost my good marker, at 30,000 feet. Anybody? Oh, thank you, brother. Somebody's listening. 30,000 feet, we got sun, right? But we live in a what? Ground level world, right? And so the question we've been asking is, how do we keep in a ground level world? See, you guys, it's all right to throw it because we're all in this together, right? And this is huge. This is not easy to do because life can take over, can it? In fact, we spent 1 week talking about the worries of this life. We all have some. How many of you had some stuff go wrong today? Yeah, you thought things were going to go zip and they went zap. You know, these kind of things happen. Deceitfulness of riches, we all face it. We think, man, if I just had a little more of this, this would make a big difference. And you got a little more of that, and it made a little difference, but not for as long as you'd anticipated. The lust for the eyes, the lust of the flesh, the persecution, the deceitfulness of wealth, boasting, all these things kind of go along down here. So how do we keep this mindset? This is what we've been trying to talk about. When this thing stops, it's all she wrote. So we talked about, just a quick review before I show you a little picture. We talked about in creation, God actually had an idea of how things what? Ought to be. Oh my gosh, this is getting better as we go. Oh, God literally had a vision. He didn't create haphazardly. He actually had something in mind. But what he had in mind isn't actually the way that it is. Yeah, but guess what? This didn't take God by surprise. He didn't create the world as it ought to be, where people could flourish, and then when the fall occurred, and we fell in love with the wrong lover and gave our affection that was due to God to the wrong thing, God didn't go, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was going to happen. Now what do I do? And we've been talking about the fact that God sees the end as well as the and even before, right? Because God's before all of it. And could it be we said that what's going to be is worth a temporary time of chaos and heartache, because what will be is going to be so much greater than what is. In fact, what will be is going to actually be how it ought to be. And that Jesus Christ came, this is his big biblical word, redemption, and Jesus shows us how it can be different than it is. He interrupts history. And we said that with the coming of Jesus Christ, and I used an illustration, 1944, you guys remember June 6, 1944, it was called what? D-Day. Oh, I love that, D-Day. And at that day, on D-Day, it was basically said, historians, that the war was won on that day, though Victory Day had not been finally secured for a year later in May of 1945. But had there been no D-Day, there would have been no V-Day. And there were battles between D-Day and V-Day. Men lost their lives. People were taken hostage. Things were gotten back. And basically the enemy did not want to give up territory that they thought was theirs, but they knew they had to give up. And so the winning forces continue to make ground until eventually victory is secured. And victory took place, V-Day. And then obviously history goes on. Well, we talked about this from another perspective, that if you think about the life of Jesus as what? D-Day. That the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ is really, when he came, he secured victory. That he actually rose from the dead. But the ultimate victory of things being the way that they're actually supposed to be has not fully occurred yet, has it? So in the short span that Jesus Christ was here, in his 33 years, he brought something known as the kingdom of God. And he began to display in his life, and eventually in this community of believers, what life with the King is actually like. And hopefully we're still doing that more and more and more today. But during these 33 short years, Jesus put in motion the kingdom of God on earth, and he was developing a team, or people who were known as his what? Disciples. Yeah. That's more the religious word, or the in-house faith word. People outside, if you said, hey, Ed, what's a disciple? You know, some of your friends go, I don't know. I don't know. A learner, it would be like a learner, somebody who is a mentor, a student of, a follower. These would all be similar words. It's somebody that's put themselves under the tutelage of another for a reason, so that not they can live their own life, but that they actually would live the life like the one they're following. This is why in 1 John 2:6 it says, whoever proclaims to follow him or to love Jesus Christ actually must walk as he walked. And so Jesus was on a mission in these 33 years to shape a team that can not only get this, but actually could pass it on to the next generation, to the next generation, to the next generation, and keep going from generation to generation and generation until one day he comes again. And he brings with him all of those who have been faithful, who have died up to that point, and they will meet those of us, God willing, who maybe are still here. If we're not, we're going to still be in that party. But those who still follow Jesus when he comes again will meet those who have died. And 1 Thessalonians 4 talks about the fact, 4:13, is that we will meet each other in the air and we will be with him forever. And then Paul says this, encourage each other with these words, because guess what? We win. We win. But until this time, and let's just say this is, 2018 right now, we've got the baton. This is not just another day. Let me ask you, do you feel, let's just speak of the U.S. In the United States of America, could the United States of America use a little bit of breath from heaven? Yeah. I mean, how about the state of Maryland? How about Baltimore City? How about Baltimore County? That's what I'm talking about. Remember, we even said, if you guys go here, I know some of you don't, but Shay mentioned this weekend that there's roughly 806,000 plus people who live in Baltimore County. There are basically 362 churches in that geography. Out of the 806 plus thousand people who live in Baltimore County, this isn't even the city, county, basically 75,000 of that 806 go to any place of worship on a Sunday morning. That means that about 91% are sitting home waiting for the NFL. or whatever. I don't know what they're doing, but they're not here. You say, well, some might be listening to somebody on the radio. Maybe, but what I'm saying is they're missing community like this, or they have no interest in this. They don't think this is important until something blows up. And then either they get back in the God game, or they go, see, that's the reason I'm not in the God game. And they need somebody who loves and cares about them enough to go, what if it's not a game? What if it's the real deal? Here's what I'm trying to say. It's not just another day. And what I know is every man in this room, and the ones who are not here, just the ones that we're talking about, you guys look around this room, how much influence do you think is in this room right now, if you looked around it? Massive. Or I would say this, none. Can go either way. There are a lot of people that do absolutely nothing with what's inside of them. And they watch other people enjoy their walk with God and go, man, I really wish I had that. There are people who've never been frightened because of their faith. And what I mean by this, they've never taken a God risk simply because they love God. Initiated a conversation, followed a little nudge, took a little risk. So I don't know if it's going to work out. Who cares? Do you ever think that when you take a step of faith, even if it doesn't work out, your faith goes a little deeper. You kind of become more and more one to that which you say you're committed to. So all I'm saying is this big vision, 30,000, it's going on every day whether we see it or not. Every day. And we have a chance to participate in this grand vision in our day-to-day world. You with me? Okay. I want to show you guys again to maybe take it from something that is, we draw on a board, to something that maybe is a little more personal. And we watched this, but I think it's worth watching again, and some guys haven't seen it. But I want to replay for you guys this little DVD, video clip called Boat Lift. And I want to play this again for you. This happened at 9/11, and I never even knew it happened until I was sent this. But once I saw it, I said, whatever we're doing in Ironmen that week, we're inserting this. It will find a way to make sense. So I want you to see this, and what I'd love you to do as you're watching this would be to interpret a little bit of this in terms of the kingdom and us having the baton in the world that we live in today. All right? So let's see this and see if God doesn't stir us a little bit more.
I thought I was watching a movie, Towering Inferno at first. And then I looked real close and I noticed it was the World Trade Center. I was compelled because I'm a type of person that can't stand by and watch other people suffer. And to me, they were suffering. They wanted to get off the island. And there was no way for them to get off the island other than the water. And I had noticed when I was watching the television, I saw a lot of, the ferries going up into the slips and taking people off. I said, fine, we could do the same thing. I could take people on my boat, get in there, take them where they have to go. And that's what we did.
On the morning of September 11th, when the towers came down, millions of people ran for safety. Hundreds of thousands of them ran south to the water's edge. That's when they realized that Manhattan is indeed an island and that they were trapped.
They were feeling helpless, and that's the worst feeling in the world. What was a person on the ground going to do? Buildings were down. There were people laying under the rubble of the building. Firemen, civilians. My wife was there, and I turned around. I says, I've got to go do something. Just like that. And she looked at me. She says, what are you going to do, you maniac? I says, I'm going to take the amberjack up into the city and help. She says, but what if they're attacked again? I says, well, then that's something I have to live with. I says, I have to do what I have to do. I says, and nobody can stop me right now. Even if I save one person or I rescue one person, that's one person less that will suffer and die.
They were trying to evacuate Manhattan because nobody knew what was going on. You know, you didn't know if something else was going to happen. It was just a madness on one side and wanting to help people on the other side.
They were just streaming out of the buildings, and the first mode of transportation they saw was a ferry boat. That's when they knew, this is how I'm getting out of here. So they didn't even care where the boat was going.
There wasn't panic in New York in the beginning, just volume. It wasn't until the first building fell that there was panic.
You heard the building go down, but we're in the slip, so we can't see it. That's when we started letting go, and then all of a sudden, engulfed. You couldn't see anything.
People were actually jumping into the river and swimming out of Manhattan. Boats were very nearly running them over.
Wait.
These people wanted out of Manhattan no matter any way they could.
Somebody wants you to go over there.
Every mode of transportation out of Manhattan was shut down. All the subways were shut. The tunnels were all closed. They closed the bridges. They closed everything immediately.
Boats, usually an afterthought in most New Yorkers' minds, were for the first time in over a century the only way in or out of Lower Manhattan.
We're gonna start evacuating people. Anybody can get over here, we're gonna evacuate them.
The process actually had already started. There were some boats that were grabbing people, that people were lined up at the walls.
On the left.
It's just human nature. You see people in distress on the seawall in Manhattan begging you to pick them up. You have to pick them up.
They didn't know what was going on. They seen the building getting hit with these two planes. As far as they was concerned, we were being bombed. I was wondering if they were going to come on the boat, if they had people with bombs, or if they were going to come on. We're a big orange target in the middle of that harbor. My job is to keep the boat safe, the passengers safe, my crew safe.
Everybody was in shock, running around. They didn't want to leave their families. They had loved ones running around the city.
Anybody has a baby? Nobody has it.
There was one guy ran from the apron and jumped onto the boat. He grabbed onto the metal, climbed up right next to the pilot. So I'm going out there to say something. He slides down to the next deck. So the deckhands get him and go, what are you doing? He goes, I'm jumping for my life. So, you couldn't argue with him there.
There was a small boat that was at the lower tip of Manhattan. I thought the boat was going to flip over because so many people were trying to get on. And as I looked behind, they were just 10 deep. And that's kind of what gave us the idea.
We decided that this has to get better organized and we better do it, and that's what we did.
So we decided to make the call on the radio. All available boats. This is the United States Coast Guard aboard the pilot boat in New York. Anyone want to help with the evacuation of Lower Manhattan, report to Governor's Island.
When that call came on the radio, they were coming.
I was uncertain of who was going to respond. About 15, 20 minutes later, there are just boats all across the horizon.
Literally 100 targets converging on the lower part of Manhattan.
When we came out of that dust cloud, tugboats, I'd never seen so many tugboats all at once.
There was just like a fleet of tugboats headed to Manhattan.
If it floated and it could get there, it got there. All different size, shapes, and forms. And they were zooming across this water.
Ferries, private boats, party boats.
I worked on the water for 28 years. I've never seen that many boats come together at one time that fast. One radio call and it just came together just that fast.
Hundreds of boats converged on the city, leaving the sun-bathed harbor behind them. Dead ahead, the unknown.
The
That was something I won't forget. It was just low, dark, acrid, black smoke. It's like there was a big chimney in Manhattan. When we pulled into Pier 11, the dust was unbelievable.
And then out of nowhere, you just kept on seeing people coming.
They looked like zombies coming through the fog, and you knew that those were human beings.
Don't leave us. Please don't leave us here. Take us. At that point, the Coast Guard said, not how many people are you allowed, how many people can you fit?
Come on, guys. Anybody coming? Get your ass over here now. Now. Come on.
Boats started hanging. Literally would take a bedsheet off a bunk and then a can of spray paint and paint their destination on.
Some of these people never been in the water, never been on a boat before.
Housewives, workers that do windows. We had executives. And the thing that was the best, everyone helped everyone.
I want you to hold my hand. Come on board. Get inside. One at a time. Get inside.
I saw 4 businessmen lifting up an old woman with a seeing eye dog, a German Shepherd, and they lifted her up like a surfboard and passed her over the handrails.
When we would carry a load of people over, and there was somebody standing there that seen their husband or wife, that made us feel even better, Well, at least we got 2 back together, Keep on going, The guy that works at the ferry, he's a welder. His son was on my boat. He actually came up. He thanked me.
We went back and forth all day long, carrying boatloads, as many as our boat would hold. And it was a lot of people. A lot of people.
You couldn't have planned nothing to happen that fast, that quick.
No training. This was just people doing what they had to do that day.
You forget all about what you're supposed to do, what they teach you in school, and you say, you know what? Morally, this is the right way to go, and deep down, this is what I'm gonna do.
Average people, they stepped up, and when they needed to, they showed me, when the American people need to come together and pull together, they will do it.
I do feel a way honored that I was a part of it.
It was the greatest thing I ever did with my life.
The greatest day that I've ever seen in all my boating. My life on the water.
The Great Boat Lift of 9/11 became the largest sea evacuation in history. Larger than the evacuation of Dunkirk in World War II, where 339,000 British and French soldiers were rescued over the course of 9 days. On 9/11, nearly 500,000 civilians were rescued from Manhattan by boat. It took less than 9 hours.
I believe somebody has a little hero in them. You gotta look in, and it's in there. It'll come out, if need to be.
I have one theory in life. I never want to say the word I should have. If I do it and I fail, I tried. If I do it and I succeed, better for me. And I tell my children the same thing. Never go through life saying you should have. If you want to do something, you do it.
So we've been trying to take a look during this time, real quickly. I want to review real quickly, and then I want to give you guys a question, and then I want to come back and kind of give a last little cap on things. It's huge. But we talked about how did the master craftsman Jesus really kind of develop this team, right? Because they don't just happen out of nowhere. He's going up to fishermen, he's going to tax collectors, he's going to guys that we probably wouldn't pick. And he's picking them for a reason, from a lot of different backgrounds. And interestingly, we learned that this word, I'm just going to hit some high points. We said this word disciple or learner or student is a scholastic word. But what it really means, it's also a very slow word. You know what I mean by that? Do you guys remember that? It's a slow word. What do you think that infers?
It takes a while to learn.
It takes a while to learn. It also means that school, takes a while to learn, and school is always in session. See, one of the things we learned about Jesus, how do we educate in the U.S.? What's our typical way of educating people? What do we typically do?
Put someone in front of the room.
Yes, you put somebody in front of the room, and we look at the back of the head, and we have guys living, we look at the back of the head, and we're all going, okay, give me a test, and what's your goal when you get a test? You write down all the right answers, go, man, that guy's really smart. Say, no, he just knows how to cheat, or he just knows how to take a test, or whatever, he's just really smart. And if we ask that same kid or person the question 5 days later, they go like, I'm not sure. And that's not the total way that we teach, but I would say this, it's not completely the way Jesus taught. One of the ways Jesus taught, it's slow. He took opportunities along the way. If you're going to make something, because what Jesus knew, see, we often think, as the Greeks, we're very linear in how we teach. Meaning, if I can teach you A, remember this, you guys, plus B, plus C, then you will live like Jesus, right? If I can just get you, Steve, to enough Bible studies, you will finally get your junk together, dude. When probably the real case would be, Steve and I hang out a lot, and we're in a situation, and I'm using Steve as an example, and Steve blows a circuit and just goes off on somebody. And we're back in the car, and see, here's what I know about Jesus, because see, Jesus loved icebergs. And Jesus said, Steve, he never even saw an iceberg, I don't think. So Steve goes off up here and blows a circuit on somebody, but Jesus said the mouth speaks from that which fills the heart. Whoa. So, you know, I'm not so worried. I'm Steve's brother, because see, Steve saw me blow a circuit last week. And so all of a sudden we say, Steve, like, man, you know, like, what? This would be a great time to say, Steve, what's going on in us? Like, we say we're following Christ, but man, we just still like, you know, doing this other crazy stuff. Like, what's going on? This doesn't seem to be in sync. Do you guys ever feel this in your life? But yeah, but we're the team. Yeah, you go, yeah, but we're a messed up team. Remember, that was week 8. We talked about that fact. They tried to comfort us that Jesus used, I would even say this, that failure is a part of our conversion process. It's not an excuse to quit or to keep doing crazy stuff, but God redeems all of it. Remember in Luke 22, at the end of Luke 22, after 3 years, how many of the inner circle was still there? 0. And Peter is from a distance. Peter goes right up to the finish line. Cock crows after he says, I don't know him. And Jesus looks at Peter. And Peter walks off and he weeps. But see, here's what was happening. What Jesus was doing was communicating the reality of himself, not simply information, but he was doing about formation. Information is a part of formation. We're not saying teaching knowledge is bad. But here's what, again, we think knowledge involves what? I just got to get enough stuff in your head, Gary. If I can just get enough stuff in that head. Jesus says, no, it's not just that. It involves that. But knowledge for a Hebrew wasn't just what you know how to do. You knew how to do it if you were actually living it. So knowledge was always experiential. To know was a word of intimacy, of a word of experience, of a word of getting your hands on it. This is why Jesus took people with him and they saw what he did. He would teach and then he would see. So they feed 5,000, right? Who are the people handing out the bread? Disciples. Who are the people picking it up? Do you think they saw the difference between what they were supposed to hand out and what they picked up? Yeah. Whose hearts were really being won that day? I mean, he helped the masses, that's great, but who was really, this was about in many ways, I think. Disciples getting this. They had to get this. Because see, Jesus was teaching them something. So then he says, but I am the bread of life. So he's teaching them knowledge, but he's also teaching it experientially. So it's going from their head, and he's slowly reeling in there because he knows if he doesn't have that, this thing ain't going to last. Because here's the beautiful thing. You guys know this, that in the upper room, when this thing all went down, the disciples, they didn't just go in a million different directions. What'd they all do? What'd they do? They all had an Ironmen session. They all went to the upper room. They had their table meet. They all got together. Oh, dudes, like, what happened? Like, were we on the wrong team? I don't know. Like, he had me. Like, we were in, right? And they're meeting. At least they're meeting. They have this identity together, right? Like, we all thought. We're looking around, we thought. And then it says in Luke 24, then Jesus appears in their midst. This is awesome. He doesn't knock. They're thinking, game over. Jesus appears and goes, game on. And it says they could not believe it for, do you know the next word? Joy. Oh, have you ever had something so good you think, it can't be true? I want it to be true. It's just like maybe some of you have had a kid and you go, oh my gosh, that belongs to me? What? What? It even kind of looks like me. That's crazy. I mean, it's like, it's overwhelming, right? Like, you know it's too good. I mean, it is true, and you know it's true, but it's kind of too good. It's like one of those moments. And so Jesus does this, the most unbelievable apologetic thing in the world. He says, what do you guys have to eat? And he eats something, all of a sudden they realize, game not off. Game is on. And all of a sudden, everything in them starts coming alive again. And this is so profound, and that's why Jesus is forming this, guys, and this is why school is always in session. And Jesus began to form them through demonstration, meaning they got a chance to see what he did. I would say this, if you ever want to think about, quote, discipling someone else, growing someone else, apprenticing someone else, don't just talk to their head, take them on experiences and let them see stuff. Help them see a demonstration, not just a verbal proclamation. It's proclamation and demonstration. It's a full orb thing. Because you don't know unless you really know, right? Remember we watched the movie Karate Kid? You know, Mr. Miyagi trained him, he just wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. We were all kind of laughing, and all of a sudden the kid doesn't think he's learned anything. He's all ticked off, and Mr. Miyagi tries to hit him, and he blocks it, kicks it, blocks it. He doesn't even know what he's learned. Wouldn't it be great to get to the point where we practice some habits in Jesus Christ and you don't even have to think about it? It's just who you are.
A lot of people do it in their jobs every day.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that, Alex. Like, how many of us see this as even our work isn't something that is an extension? It's like, you know, I told you this great Hebrew word, avad. You guys remember this? Or avodah, avad. You guys know what that word means? It means three things. It means worship, and service. It's the same thing. You go, I'm going to work. No, you could say, I'm going to worship. No, I'm going to work. I know, but you're going to worship. What do you mean? You put your whole heart into whatever you do as if it's done to the Lord. See, this is why we've taught people you have a secular and sacred life. Do you know? Let me ask you this. Was Jesus God when he wasn't building chairs? Is that secular work? Now, some people think that word, carpenter, also was stone work, stonemason. It wasn't just wood. That's one of those misconceptions that we often think. So let me just ask you guys this. So was Jesus, did he have a secular job and then a sacred job? So you don't think when he went to carve some wood or create some rock, that was his secular job, right? And then he was done that when he went and fed 5,000, that was his sacred job. That was his God job, right? No. That's a total misunderstanding. The word secular means to do something as if God is not. It means to bend, twist, or profane God's creational intent. You know, God created the world, so there had to be trade. You know that, right? Because wheat maybe doesn't grow where rice does, or sugar. And if you got sugar, and I got wheat, and I want your wheat, and you want my sugar, then we have to do what? We got to trade. You know, isn't this awesome? God said, develop the undeveloped world. That's just, it's all there, just develop it. It's not, you know, we make categories. What makes something secular? I've said this 100 times. It's its direction. Does it profane, bend, or twist God's original intent? Like, you can do sacred business or secular business. You can have sacred, quote, church or secular church. You think there's nothing, quote, secular in this thing called the church sometimes? Really? You don't think you can have a school teacher that's doing sacred work? Somebody that's IT or business or computer, whatever you do, that your doctors, whatever you guys do that brings human flourishing, that makes things better. This is the risk. This is what you do every day with your hands. This is what I mean. I've heard guys go, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian mechanic. It's like, I don't really care. Are you good at what you do? Because if you're not, don't tell people you're a Christian anything. I don't know what people think. That means I fix cars better. It's like, I don't know if you do or not. Like, I've heard guys literally say, the guys I don't want to do business with are believers. I've literally had guys tell me that. I've heard guys say they're some of the worst guys to do business with. That's crazy, but it's true. I've heard people say this. I mean, like, we make the distinction. Like, well, basically what you're saying is, if I say I'm this, I'll get all the Christian people's business. Why don't you just be great at what you do and be the best at what you do, and then anybody wants your business. Anybody wants you fixing their computer. Anybody wants you teaching their kids. Anybody wants you fixing their house. Anybody, you see what I mean? Like, we're trying to reach this part of the world, but we, without knowing, are making our own, our separation states. We don't need to do this. And so I don't think Jesus did that. I just think he was incredibly great, obviously, at what he did, and so were the people whom he loved. And then we went and talked some more about, gosh, what did we talk about? We talked about so much. About the ways that Jesus formed them. He took them on experiences. He had small groups, right? Little groups. He had big groups. When you guys think about this, anybody can do these kinds of things. One of the things he used a ton was the Q word, right? You remember what that stood for? He asked a lot of questions. Oh, yes, he did. And questions are just so amazing because a lot of times, particularly if you're raising young people at your home, what is your tendency with them? You want to do what? Tell them. You want to tell them. And I get that. Sometimes they might need to be told, but boy, what if you started asking some questions before you tell them? One of the things I learned, I found myself getting angry about this at one point, which was this. I felt like at times, like believers, followers of Jesus, were the only people who were having to give an answer for what we believe and why we believe it. I feel like, why does everybody else get off the hook? And like we're the ones who are trying to make sense out of this thing called life. And it's interesting. If you start asking other people about what they believe and just keep pushing them a little bit, not in a mean way, but say, why do you believe that? Like, where'd that come from? Does that really make sense? I mean, like, how's that work when this goes down? All of a sudden, people are going to start seeing holes in what they believe like cheese. Because you do have a story of ought, is, can, will, if you know anything else. And I'm telling you, most people who don't believe in God already get the ought part. They all will say, they get ought and is like there's no tomorrow. You'll hear people say all the time, man, that is not right. Meaning, that's not the way that's what they're basically telling you. They're basically, the way it is ain't the way it ought to be. What they don't know how to do is how to make it different than it is. And that's the profoundness. So I have learned, Jesus was a master at asking questions. He would often say, hey, what do you want? John 1. John 5, do you want to get well? Rich young ruler, Jesus talks to him. Just constantly asking the question. And I think it's an incredible way to get into people's hearts. One of the things that I have learned over the years in just working with people is that, even to ask like, hey, why did you say that? Why'd you say that? Or do you really believe that? I mean, to ask people, like, because nobody ever does. We let people get away with the craziest stuff. Sometimes we just need to stop the train long enough and ask the question. And then we spent a week, and I talked to you guys about the fact that, Jesus asked people, like, what did you want? And we spent a whole time talking about, have you ever thought about how much you're wanted? That these disciples really knew. They were watching Jesus do all this, but yet they also knew that Jesus really loved them. I want to ask you, when the team needed a little boost, in John chapter 21, what do you see Jesus do? John chapter 21, they're out fishing again. Peter's out fishing again. And he yells out on the boat the same thing that he asked Peter 3 years before in Luke chapter 5. Do you remember what it was? This is so great. He goes, what? Did you catch anything? No. And what did he say, John? Throw the net on the other side. Throw the net on the other side of the boat. And all of a sudden they start hauling in fish, 153. And Peter goes, remember what he said? It's the Lord. And he puts his clothes on. I don't know what Peter was fishing in, but he puts his clothes on. Swims in. And Jesus already has breakfast fed. It's ready to rock and roll. Breakfast is ready. And he asked Peter 3 times. He goes, Peter, do you love me? Peter, do you love me? Isn't that a great question? He didn't say, Peter, you do love me. He said, Peter, do you? He let Peter back in the game. After Peter said no 3 times, he let Peter get his dignity back. 3 times. Isn't that awesome? Because something big was going to happen. Jesus saw something in these guys. And I just began to talk about the fact that in a one, Jesus said, in the one, he sees the world. And in the world, he doesn't miss all the little ones. See, in Luke 15, Jesus said, I came to seek and save the lost, but there's 10 coins. And if you have 9 but lose 1, what do? You go and look for the one. You got a lot of sheep, 199 are good, but you lose 1. What do? You go get the... Why? Why don't you just say, heck with the 1, man, I got 99. Because that 1 matters.
The one that's just as important is at 99.
Exactly. Like Melanjo's that 1. We have 99, doesn't matter. I see the world in him, and in him I see everybody. It's just that we made this statement that somehow with the Lord, the world is an abundance of ones. The world's an abundance of ones, and he doesn't miss the beauty and the desirability of each. And the degree that we really get this in us, profound things happen. And then we spent, again, a week talking about this big 2 questions Jesus asked, which were, who do people say I am? And then what? Who do you say I am? Probably the 2 biggest questions. And that's a great question to ask people, like, hey, who do you say Jesus is? I mean, he's not whoever we want him to be. I mean, people think great freedom to have God be whatever they want. Isn't that crazy? What if we did that to everybody else? Like, hey, brother, you're whatever I want. Like, let me tell you who you are. Let me just tell you who you are. You're like, what? You don't even know me. And I think we begin to settle for so much less when we don't know who he truly, truly, really is. And so here's what I'd love you to do. I want you to just take about maybe 10, 15 minutes. You can pal up with 2 or 3 guys around you. We're going to throw a question up, but here's the question. I'd love you just to think about this, okay? Here's Jesus. He gets to this point. He's going to go back to the Father. And it's baton passing time. He gives us vision. And then he says, now it's time for you guys to take it. I want you to think about this. What's the secret sauce, so to speak, that's going to take this thing that Jesus set in motion and allow it to really continue from one generation to the next until he returns? So here's the deal. This is not meant to be a trick question or funny, but I want to just I want to ask you guys, like, this shouldn't be overly hard either, but it's huge. And I want to just think, what do you guys think about when you think about the secret sauce? You know what I mean? What do you think? You think it's charisma, ability, personality, strategy? Those things unimportant?
Acts 2.
Huh? Are they important?
Acts 2.
Acts 2. Wait, what's that, Steve?
Where we were talking about the apostles were in the room, it was Pentecost, and then suddenly the Holy Spirit came down and filled them, tongues of fire, and
Wham.
the ability to go out and speak to many nations.
Yeah, Prophet Joel said centuries before that the Spirit of God will come upon all people, right? Like, let me ask you this. Do you think Jesus, we're thinking about our vision, my board's not here, but, and he's passing on the baton, do you think he put it in our hands to carry it on? Did he? Yes. But did he put it in our hands to carry on? Yes, but did he just put it in our hands alone and carry it on to carry it on? No. He's not that foolish. Well, listen, he's like, man, I went through a lot. I'm not letting you guys mess this thing up. I mean this in a good way, seriously. Think of these thoughts with Jesus. This is so amazing. Again, I wish that one day we'll be able to talk with I can't wait to say, Peter, like, don't you wish you want to talk? I want to talk to Peter. And Johnny go, hey, seriously, like, when you guys were in the upper room, and like when Jesus came back, seriously, like, just tell me, what was it like? Like, what was the first thing that ran through your head? Seriously. And then Jesus says this to him. He says, he opened their minds so that they could understand the scriptures, and he told them, this is what is written, that the Christ will suffer and rise from the dead on the third day, and repentance and forgiveness of sins will be preached in his name to all nations, beginning here in Jerusalem. And you, they're thinking they're trouble. Imagine the energy in that room. And you are my witnesses of these things. And I'm going to send you out to do what my Father has promised. And you can just feel like, yeah, they're breaking the huddle going, let's go kick some people's butts. Let's go. And they're just like ready to run out there and just do this thing because they thought it was all over hours before. And then Jesus says these great words. He goes, but stay in the city until you've been clothed with power from on high. That's really dunamis. It means you have a resource that you don't have yet. So while I'm going to live in you, I'm not retreating and being non-player anymore. Now guess what? I'm going to be as much in play as I ever was. But now I'm going to be actually in you. How many of us in this room, me included, actually think that Jesus Christ walks around this world in your body? Jesus Christ interacts with other people in your body. Hold just right. That Jesus Christ touches other people through your touch, hears other people through your words, speaks to other people through your voice. I'm trying to make this as understandable as possible. Listen to these words in John. This is so powerful. John 14:17. And then John, I will get to you here. John 14:17. Jesus says, the world can never accept him, but neither, just 17:17, the Spirit of truth, he goes, the world cannot accept him because it neither sees him nor knows him. But you know him, for he lives with you and he will be in you. Chapter 16, verse 7, but I tell you the truth, it is for your good that I'm going away, because unless I go, the Counselor will not come to you, but if I go, I will send him to you. And it's profound. And then we have in Acts chapter 1, we hear in Acts 1, 8, but you will receive what? What? Power when the Holy Spirit belongs to you, comes into you. And you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes unto you, and you will be my witnesses. We've heard this verse so many times, we're numb to it, I think. He doesn't say, you'll just be my witnesses. No. You got to get something you don't have to do what needs to be done, because it exceeds zeal, it exceeds personality, it exceeds ability, it exceeds charisma. This is something that only God's Spirit can do to convict of sin and righteousness and judgment. But he can do it as we love, as we touch, as we ask questions, as we speak truth, as I just see this not as another day. Guys, if you want to be part of something that's the greatest thing in the world, it's a huge dream, and it's going to, we win. This is awesome. But we can get caught in a little world of me. Me too. Or, the fact of the matter is, when I said yes to Jesus Christ, in John chapter 3 it said this, that literally the Spirit of God came into my life at that time, and I don't know where all you guys are, but the Scriptures say that I actually was reborn and rebirthed at that moment into a different reality. Now, I can quench that Spirit. I can say no to that Spirit. I think I can hinder God's Spirit from working in my life by trying to take back rule. But what Jesus is saying, if you're going to be a part of what I'm doing, it's a hands open like this. And I'm just telling you, one of the things I've had to learn, I've almost had to prove to myself that the Spirit is in me by learning what the Spirit does and how He speaks to me. And I can only tell you how I've learned. Here's how I've learned. When I felt strong nudgings, I've learned to just do them. And the outcomes have shown me that's God's voice. I get it. I hear it, Lord. I hear you. And you guys know what I'm talking about? You ever sense that? There's times that I'll just read the Scriptures and I'm like, oh my gosh, Lord, like that is profound. And there's just like an insight that will come that's just, it's different. It's almost from a different place. And I've learned over time that really, I've learned to interact with the Lord in times, to just be quiet as I'm praying at times. And I've learned to just shut up and learn that prayer is not just one way. But learning to ask, hey, God, what do you think about this? Like, Lord, I don't know how to pray for this couple right now, God. What is your heart? I just keep my mouth shut. I just wait. And sometimes a word will just come. or a phrase, or maybe nothing, and I just give it back to the Lord. Say, Lord, you say you pray for us. I just offer you that. There have been situations where I'm with people and I'm literally talking to them. I don't know what to say, and in my mind, God, I don't know what to say to this brother right now. What do you have for him? And then I might hear, just give him a passage from my word, because my word's living and active and sharper than any two-edged sword. This isn't just ink on paper. So I've learned, all I'm saying, you guys, is we realize that we have all we need in the Spirit with Jesus to do what He wants us to do. This isn't weird stuff. And I think Jesus, if we're serious about Him, has every expectation of His followers to actually be in the game. To be in the game. That we get every day and we're asked to live for something greater than ourselves with a group of us. Wouldn't it be great tomorrow if you just went out and said, oh man, like I'm here, but I wonder where all those brothers last night are right now, man. That's awesome. Like we got guys in office buildings and hospitals and cleaning, buildings and fixing things and doing stuff. Like, man, I wonder where all these brothers are at right now. That's awesome. So there's a me where I am, but then there's a we where we are. And then think about this, that every one of us, you do know someone. And I would challenge you this, to just write down, ask God if you don't, but say, God, would you give me the name of one person, just one, that I could give what I know of you to that one, that it will teach me how to give away what I know, that I'm on this journey, that maybe I'd ask you to just say, hey, would you be willing to just hang out with me for 6 months and maybe meet once a week, twice a month, and I'd love to just go on this journey, and you teach me, and I'll teach you everything I know, and we'll just go on this thing and see where we end up. I can help you with that, but I'm telling you guys, if you want, you will never be the same if you do this. And it's just a matter of asking. Just have an eyes. Just ask the Lord for it, because here's what I know. God will answer this prayer because He wants this thing to keep going. And I want to call this out of us. I just don't want us to get lazy in this. There's just too much at stake. And you're needed. The profound power in this room is awesome through your hands. You guys are doing so much where you are right now, and to God be the glory, right? There's an amazing amount of people who got love through you guys today. An amazing amount of people. And we said this in week 8, and then I want to read you this story. Unfortunately, God doesn't disqualify cracked vessels. In fact, in 2 Corinthians 4, it says how He uses cracked treasures to communicate His truth. Isn't that awesome? And one of the brothers back here told me about this kintsugi Japanese art. It's amazing pottery. You know what they do with broken pottery? They seal the cracks with gold adhesive. You guys got to look this up. And we're going to see it next session. It's prettier than the original. It's almost like, man, I'm glad the thing was broken. It looks a lot better now. Like God takes this and does great things, and He'll redeem your stuff, and you'll have a place to share it. And like, oh man, you think that was bad? Let me tell you what happened in my life, and let me tell you what the Lord did there. Oh, you think you're angry? You should have seen me, dude. Like, oh, you struggle with porn? Oh, let me tell you about that. I mean, God does this. Isn't it awesome? So, I want to challenge us to dare to ask the Holy Spirit. He's given us this vision, this responsibility, this privilege. He didn't just send us and say, oh, go do the best you can. I'm leaving it up to you, Paul. No. Paul, we're in. Tommy, in. We're in. Bernie, in. John, in. I'm in. We're in. He puts His Spirit within us, and now we get to literally walk around, and He houses Himself in us, and He's millions of places. Here's what I know. He's near these fires in California, because I just got an email today from some Young Life staff people that live right there that are working with kids in that community. And some of their committee folks and the kids they're working with, their homes are gone. God's people are right in the thick of that thing, man. And we need to pray for them, because I think they're Jesus' hands. And it's powerful. Let me read you this. I put a copy out there if you're interested. It might be an old thing, but I want to read it because I just think it's so great. In fact, I thought of this Sunday. I was sitting in church, and it hit me. It goes, on a dangerous seacoast where shipwrecks often occurred, there was once a crude little life-saving station. You'll love this. The building was just a hut, and there's only one boat. But the few devoted members, they kept a constant watch over the sea, and with no thought for themselves, they went out day or night tirelessly searching for the lost. Many lives were saved by this little life station so that it became famous. In fact, some of those who were saved and various others in the surrounding areas wanted to become associated with the station and give their time and money and effort for the support of its work. New boats were bought and new crews were trained, and the little life-saving station began to grow. Now, some of the new members of the life-saving station were unhappy that the building was so crude and so poorly equipped. They felt that a more comfortable place should be provided as the first refuge of those saved from the sea. So they replaced the emergency cots with beds, and they put better furniture in an enlarged building. Now the life-saving station became a popular gathering place for its members, and they redecorated it beautifully and furnished it as a sort of club. Less of the members were now interested in going to sea, though, on life-saving missions, so they hired lifeboat crews to do the work. The mission of life-saving was still given lip service, but most were too busy or lacked the necessary commitment to take part in the life-saving activities personally. About this time, a large ship was wrecked off the coast, and the hired crews brought in boatloads of cold, wet, and half-drowned people. They were dirty and sick, and some of them had black skin, and some spoke a strange language, and the beautiful new club was considerably messed up. So the property committee immediately had a shower house built outside the club where victims of shipwreck could be cleaned up before coming inside. At the next meeting, there was a split in the club membership. Some of the members wanted to stop the club's life-saving activities as being unpleasant and a hindrance to the normal life pattern of the club. But some members insisted that life-saving was still their primary purpose and pointed out that they were still called a life-saving station. But they were finally voted down and told that if they wanted to save the life of all the various kinds of people who were shipwrecked in those waters, they could begin their own life-saving station down the coast, and they did. As the years went by, the new station experienced the same changes that had occurred in the old one, and they evolved also into a club, and yet another life-saving station was founded. If you visit the seacoast today, you will find a number of exclusive clubs along that shore. Shipwrecks are frequent in those waters, only now most of the people drown. This is a little parable called A Lighthouse. And I want you to read it like, if you think the church can't end up like that, I don't mean Jesus' church. I mean what we make of it. And I don't know about you guys, but I want to get up every day and ask, who am I following? And what's my life about today with where I'm going to find myself and doing what I'm doing? Because life is more than just about making a buck and paying a mortgage and having a car and getting it repaired. And that's part of life. I get it. It's part of the isness in some ways. Some days you have a little bit more isness than that. But I'm telling you, when you and I get ready to take our final breath, I promise you, don't you want to know that the King of Kings has captured your heart and you've been about something that's far exceeded you and done the best you can to give it away? How about that, huh? That's worth getting up for, isn't it? And guess what? You don't have to have all the knowledge to do it, but you have the Spirit. So just say, God, I'm in. I'll take the risk. I hope this is one of our biggest fears. I don't want this. And I fear at times I've become that at times. If we're doing church right, so to speak, it's messy. And we're messy. And we haven't got it all together. And it allows anybody walking off this street to come in here who might think, man, those people only knew. And a lot of us could go, I know, that was me. In fact, I'm still dealing with some of that stuff. Thank God that Jesus was a friend of people like me and you, right? Amen. Hey, I want to do something. I'd like you guys to stand. I want to read a blessing over you. How about it? In God's Word. You guys are the best. And God willing, we'll be back January 7th and January 10th. Please take one of these cards. It'll give you a little thing. And also, there's information out there for our spring weekend. We're going to take a bunch of guys down to Young Life Property in April in Lexington, Virginia. Take one of those. And you'll be blessed to have it. So hear the word of the Lord. The Lord said to Moses, Tell Aaron and his sons, this is how you are to bless the men who come to Ironmen. Say to them, the Lord bless you, and the Lord keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you, and to be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you, and give you peace. For you are his son, in whom his Spirit lives, in whom he loves, and with whom he is well pleased. To God be the glory. Amen. Amen. So, the Winter Series, starting January 7th and January 10th, we're going to begin a brand new series that we've entitled Small, the New Big. I don't know about you, but sometimes we look for the big things to do in life, the extravagant, things that are well known and well seen. But what if we could learn that the power is really doing the little things, maybe at times even the unnoticed things, but that are the right things over a long haul that eventually produce massive, life-changing, seismic shifts, if you will. We're going to spend a great 8 weeks talking about how small is the new big. We hope to see you either on Monday the 7th or Thursday the 10th.